Now, if you want to debunk his talking points, that's fair. If you want to critique and analyze his talking points, that's fair. If you want to disagree with his assertions, that's fair game, man. That's all up. Hey, look, it's put out there in a public forum. That's fair game. But to go back to high school, to use a high school photo from a guy that's today in his 50s, that means y'all went back, what, four decades? Three or four decades. And you know what that tells me? That tells me that all of y'all who made videos talking about that dude's high school picture, that tells me y'all can't debunk his talking points. Because if you can debunk his talking points, debunk them. If you can deconstruct his argument, deconstruct it. What does him being on the dance team in high school some 30 years ago have to do with what he said in 2021? And if you're going to use that as your justification to try to ridicule this dude, again, this is Saul Alinsky. You got to read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. I think this was rule, what? Don't quote me on this. I think this was rule number 6. The use of mockery. Use mockery against your opponent. This is all out of that white liberals playbook. So for those of y'all who don't consider yourselves liberals, who don't consider yourselves Democrats, who don't consider yourselves a part of that schnick, yet y'all using a playbook that they have written and used for themselves. I think that's just problematic for me.
I like to thank Sergeant Nick Taylor for this amazing gentleman here. Those of you who've been around me, you knew that I like David Carroll. I did. I was one of the first time listeners, but there was a couple of things that he did that I did not like. But overall, I would say 90% of what he was talking about, I fully agreed with him. And regardless of what anybody ever says, like I said before, I made a video after his passing that he had a couple of detractors, right? But the one thing they could not say against the man is they could not say that he was boring. They could not say that he was boring. And even though the 10% that I couldn't stand about him, and I won't go into it, I still defended him against what was that channel called? It was the channel that was that professor, or this black guy who was going to be a PhD candidate. He had his it was something against the manosphere, exposing the manosphere. That dude, he was a PhD candidate, and he was going hard against Bunker TV, which is weird to me. He couldn't stand Bunker TV, and then it's just weird how we pick up people that don't like us, and that channel exposing the manosphere. He could not stand David Carroll, and he talked about how David Carroll's channel was just a decade of him talking about black women. He totally lied on that, because every single video was not just talking about black women. He was talking about the black American condition and how it's getting worse and why it's getting worse. And he was laying his own thesis, I guess, of how we got to where we are and where we're going. And the clock was a symbol that the black community is running out of time. Well, here we are, and we have a migrant crisis going on. And you'd have to be, um, you'd have to be insane if you're telling me that you don't think that these people are not trying to replace us. You'd have to be. I'm seeing Venezuelans in my neighborhood. They're all over the place. They are nice guys. They go to our local Planet Fitness. There's a bunch of them. Remember Dr. Claude Anderson told us that this was going to happen. Those of you who don't really read and you don't you subscribe to foolishness. I get it. But a lot of you never really watched Dr. Claude Anderson when he told us that this is what they were going to do to us. You didn't get it. My neighborhood is full of Bangladeshis, right? Bangladeshis, Venezuelans. Who will it be tomorrow? David Carroll was the juggernaut of black thought. There's been a few, like I said, Dr. Claude Anderson. If you've never listened to anything this man has ever said, why don't you go watch a video? It's right on YouTube. Dr. Claude Anderson. He told us that this was going to happen, and look at where we are now. And it always seems to be that the men that are talking about something receive the most hate in the world. Or they are extremely confused, like a lot of black people are. You see the Democrat parties replacing you, and you keep online and everywhere telling people vote blue, down ballot, give Joe Biden another chance. Seriously? Are we living in the Twilight Zone? Is your neighborhood being flooded with Venezuelans and Bangladeshis? Well, let me say this. At least the Bangladeshis, they come here because they actually apply for it and they pay for it online. So I can't say shit about that. The Venezuelans, a lot of them are pretty much fence jumpers. And the Democrat Party is giving them $1,000 a week on a debit card. Go look up that, New York City. 2 years free rent. Eric Adams, New York City, giving them 2 years free rent. While the rest of us who were born and raised here, U.S. citizens, you get nothing. You get a cup of ice cream and please vote Democrat. And you still see Al Sharpton and all these rats and scumbags, Roland Boule Martin. They keep telling you to keep voting Democrat, and you just look at these people like, are we not all insane? You ever ask yourself that question? Are we not all insane as the black population? And see, but these are the black men that I like listening to because they make you think. Because a lot of us, we are not thinking about nothing. Nothing serious. Salute David Carroll. Salute Sergeant Nick Taylor for this great drop. I always like listening to the Juggernaut.